Pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Want to do board meeting protocol? There was no action taken in closed session.
Hello. All right. Thank you. Board meeting protocol for tonight. Our session is being recorded and it's open to the public. It's also live through Zoom teleconference. For public comment, comments are 3 minutes per agenda item. The board shall limit the total time for public comment for each agenda item to 20 minutes. With board consent, the board president may increase or decrease the time allowed for public comment. To make public comment in person, there's public comment cards at both sides of the doors over there, and just please give that to Ms. Bach, our board meeting assistant tonight. Also, email public comments can be sent to superintendent 24 hours before the meeting. We did not receive any written public comments for tonight. And board vote and connectivity, each motion will be followed by a roll call vote for action items. And we do not have any members that are remote tonight. Trustee Cagle is not here.
For topics not on the agenda, we'll start with Galen Gomez.
Yep. Okay, we're good. All right. Good evening, board members. Thank you for this opportunity to address you directly. My name is Galen Gomez, and I'm the president of Galt Elementary Faculty Association. I would like to share with you a brief update on how GFA feels our bargaining process went this year. I want to start off by acknowledging that I also serve as a teacher in a subordinate position in this district. However, I'm speaking to you as an agent of the union that represents almost 85% of your certificated staff. Our negotiations have included changes to most of the articles each team's sunshine this year. And I really do think we've made some really positive changes for the children and families we serve, as well as the certificated and permitted staff who work with the children and families. We are very proud of the work we have accomplished, but it has not been without struggle. The way this process has previously worked is that we pass opened articles back and forth between the two teams, moving toward a compromised agreement. Then we sign off on a tentative agreement saying that we've come to consensus on those articles, sign the TA, and eventually the district gets that language to us. This year, we learned that was not a good plan. As you are aware, we reached a tentative agreement, signed it, and when the language came to us several days later, we read through it carefully, recognizing there were 2 items in the language we did not remember agreeing to. We consulted our team, our notes, and we were convinced that this language was not what the agreed upon language was, and therefore had to push the pause button. We have all learned a lesson from this experience, and in the future, we will make sure we have a final copy of the language and thoroughly review it before we sign any tentative agreements. We want to be clear that GEFA did not go back on a tentative agreement. Following the conclusion of the majority of our negotiation work, This year, we, as in CTA and GEFA, received a bill in the amount of almost $6,000, a bill charging us for the cost of our subs while negotiating with the district. I want to be very clear, this is unprecedented. There are no changes in the contract language that would indicate this was warranted or agreed to. And according to the Public Employee Relations Board, both times spent bargaining and preparing for bargaining shall not come as an expense to the union. Our union negotiations also set a standard for other employee groups to follow in terms of compensation and benefits. This includes unrepresented groups you are considering this evening, such as school counselors, social workers, administrators, and eventually that of our superintendent. Why does it seem reasonable that GEFA should shoulder the financial burden of that? This was an improper action on the part of our district. It took 2 weeks to resolve this. The district finally rescinded the bill, but quite frankly, it was disappointing that it took so much time and effort to do so. I will also share our communications meetings were charged to the union, as well as GEFA attendance at School Services of California Budget Review Meeting. The same meetings you all are invited to attend, the same meetings CSEA is invited to attend. As you can very well imagine, a bill like that would have been a huge blow to a small unit such as ours, which leads me to my next point, which is the number of times we have had conversations with management regarding actions we believe to be in line with union busting. We've had negative comments from certain admin regarding members reaching out to their union and how the union is prohibitive. We've had numerous conversations, even as recently as February, regarding admin scheduling adjunct duty and meetings on union meeting dates, which has long been an understanding shall not happen, as the district should not engage in activities which prevent members from attending their union meetings, which are and have been scheduled the third Thursday of every month as long as I've been in this district, which is over 18 years. In respect to communications meetings, I would like you to be aware we have managed to address several issues that were leading to grievances being filed for the CBA between GEFA and the district not being followed, including a morning relief schedule period that stated that we had negotiated such that all middle school teachers could use the restroom at some point during the first 4 hours of their workday. Previously, teachers were told they could use the restroom during passing periods and simultaneously directed stand at your door during passing periods and monitor. We had to fight really hard to add some protective language in there for this last year, working with preps and lunches, not specifically scheduling a 10-minute break, as we spoke with unit members, as well as admin had indicated they didn't think it was possible to maintain student behavior for that 10 minutes. It would cause, there was cause for concern being able to do so. So we compromised with the lunch prep idea. It was pretty much, I will tell you, disregarded this school year when the 23-24 schedule was created. Be happy to give you more information about that as needed. I want to say again this clearly, we are talking about a schedule to guarantee our middle school teachers get to use the bathroom within the first 4 hours of their workday. What I guess I want you to know is we're not fighting for things that are unreasonable. We're fighting for things we believe demonstrate basic human decency and compassion. Public education is afforded on the backs of people willing to work for free. Every single person we represent rarely works the hours defined in our contract. And I will share, we do so because we want to see our students succeed. You may not really know it, but we hear all the time that employee morale is low, and we see an increasingly greater number of employees reaching out to us, sharing they are feeling harassed and unsafe in their workplace. This district is full of exceptional educators who believe in putting students first, and I really hope that you will encourage the management team of this district to treat its employees as the professionals they are. Our educators need people to lead them, to encourage them, and to support them as they push forward doing the same for our students. The effects of this trickle down to those who we are here to serve, our students. Thank you for your time, and please do not hesitate to reach out as a team to GEFA if you have any questions.
Thank you. Thank you. And now we have Kristen Zipper.
Good evening. We both have colds, in case you hadn't noticed. Good evening. My name is Kristen Zipper. I've been a teacher for 34 years, 27 of those in Galt. I'm speaking tonight on behalf of the GFA as the bargaining chair. I have been a member of GFA for 27 years and have served as secretary, vice president, and have been a member of the bargaining team on 3 separate occasions under 3 different superintendents: Jeff Jennings, Karen Schauer, and Lois Schamt. I was on the bargaining team when we received our biggest raises. And I was on the bargaining team during the difficult years when we took furlough days to keep the district financially solvent. This year has been the most difficult and stressful year I have ever served on bargaining. It shouldn't be, because we were able to get some extra money in our members' pockets, and we have a strong team that works diligently to ensure the best for the students of Galt. So why has it been so stressful? I honestly believe it is because there has been so much time and energy spent trying to solve issues that shouldn't be happening and that could be easily solved if everyone was working in an honest and transparent way while focusing on the best interest of the employees and students in Galt. I want to highlight a few examples. This year in bargaining, we worked over many sessions to improve GFA contract language. We clarified language and made changes based on compromises between the interests of GFA and the district. We had a TA and were ready to share the changes with our members. We went line by line through the new agreement and our old contract so we could highlight the changes for our members at our meeting the following day. Galen and I were quite surprised to find 2 sections that were not what we had agreed to and were not previously passed versions. We had to postpone our vote to membership and work with our team and the district to clarify and adjust the changes. We did not go back on assigned TA. The TA had changed. This resulted in a lot of late night, off the clock hours trying to get retro checks into the hands of our people while still maintaining the agreements we thought that we had. Last year, we tried to get an increase in pay of 5% for our speech and language pathologists, but the district wasn't in agreement. This year, we lost 3 speech and language pathologists to districts that offered higher pay and because we couldn't attract new ones to our district. So we had to hire contract speech and language pathologists who cost the district much more money. This year, GFA members voted to give the speech and language pathologists a $10,000 increase so we could attract and maintain high quality people. This agreement took money out of the pot available to other certificated and permitted employees during salary negotiations, but we knew it benefited the students. We would have saved a lot of money and qualified employees had we given the raise last year. On February 27th, CTA received an invoice from the district for $5,875.31 to pay for GFA substitutes on bargaining and communications days. GFA was made aware of this invoice on March 5th when CTA began including us on email communications with the district regarding this invoice. This was an unprecedented and illegal request by the district. Both CTA and GFA leadership communicated the illegality of this request, and we assumed that the request had been made in error. On Friday, March 8th, CTA reached out to the district and cited that as recent as 2019, the Public Employee Relations Board had ruled that bargaining meetings and a reasonable amount of time preparing for bargaining must be provided to the union without cost. Also, meetings requested by the district to solve ongoing issues to maintain positive communication and working conditions, our monthly half-day communication meetings, have always been paid for by the district. Nothing should have changed. The district chose not to discuss this with us or respond to our questions of whether this was going to be rescinded until the morning of March 13th, when we communicated to the district that we would not be attending our monthly communications meeting the following day or participate in any future bargaining sessions until the invoice had been rescinded. The reply we received was that they would discuss it with legal and get back to us in the next week. Later in the day, I sent out an email to our membership explaining the reason we would be canceling communications the next day. Within 2 hours of that email being sent, we received word from the district that the invoice would be rescinded. Again, many hours of extra time were spent dealing with this issue that should have never happened and has never happened in the history of our district. You have not seen me or Galen speaking at board meetings this year. We are problem solvers and having a strong bargaining team that we work with, as well as a quality of executive board. We have spent countless hours on the phone, emailing, and problem solving issues around the district. I've been texting cabinet members while at the hair salon and talking on the phone with them at 8 o'clock on a Friday night. Just in the past 2 weeks, I have worked with 3 different employee groups who feel undervalued, harassed, and even bullied. We make sure we articulate how much we value them and then work to help them find solutions and sometimes apologies. This district excels because of the countless unpaid hours that are worked by certificated and permitted employees. If we want to retain our high-quality staff, the district needs to make sure their employees' professionalism and time is being respected and valued. We know that funding for next year looks questionable, so positive working conditions will be even more crucial. The district will need to work with GFA through communications to ensure issues that arise are dealt with quickly to maintain a positive work environment for all. Administrators need to review, respect, and follow the contract so that we don't need to spend hours dealing with problems related to adjunct duty hours, protected Thursdays, and the need for a morning relief period. These are just a few of examples of items that we have discussed multiple times over the past 2 years. Once we have discussed things and solutions are worked out, those solutions need to be honored. Moving forward, we will have a GFA report at every board meeting, and I hope that those reports will reflect more of the positive changes being made collaboratively for our educators and students. I truly hope that the frustrations of this year will not continue, and that our certificated and permitted employees feel respected, valued, and supported by the district that they have just chosen to devote their time, expertise, and hearts to each and every day. Thank you.
Thank you. Did Kim? Okay, okay. Then we have Ryan Montgomery.
Dear members of the cabinet and school board, I come before you to speak about an issue that is very important to me. And that is the safety of the students at McCaffrey Middle School. These days, I see a great many things said about the safety of the students at the school I love working at. I have come before you to let you know that a lot of it is embellished or not true. I feel as though not only is McCaffrey Middle School safe, but I challenge any naysayer to find a safer public middle school in the area. Please, by all means, try Elk Grove, Lodi, or Stockton. During passing period and lunch, there are many yard duties present that take a proactive approach at McCaffrey. The administrators are routinely out in the most populated areas, during passing period, lunch, and after school. I myself am also out there routinely during these times. The unfortunate truth is that fights happen at all middle schools. I would challenge you to show me one that doesn't have them. However, they are broken up swiftly and the administration gives appropriate consequences promptly. McCaffrey Middle School spends the first entire week of the school year going over the rules, expectations, and routines at our school. Furthermore, we went over them yet again school-wide right after the Christmas break. There is no ambiguity with the rules at McCaffrey Middle School. Kids at the age of 12 to 14 know right from wrong. They know what they're doing. I would like to invite all of you to come to our campus. I will take the day off on my own dime if need be and walk around with you during these times that social media claims we apparently have a fight club at McCaffrey. McCaffrey is a great school and I'm glad my children will have spent their middle school years there. The children that go there are having a great time, are enjoying their middle school experience, and I can assure you are quite safe. Please come see with your own eyes and ears and let them tell you what you see. Instead of this false boogeyman that is being portrayed on social media. Unfortunately, things such as fighting, vaping, and kids being caught with alcohol happen in almost all middle schools. I wish it wasn't today's reality, but it is. I am not here to be disrespectful to the parents. Their perception is their reality. But I feel as if things have gotten greatly out of hand on social media regarding what is actually happening at our great school. McCaffrey takes the responsibility of ensuring our students' safety quite seriously and goes to great lengths to make sure that happens. Thank you.
Thank you.
You know, Oh, it's on now. Yep. All right, thank you. All right, we will start tonight. We have quite a few reports under LCAP Goal 1, and we will start with our second trimester data. Thank you, Cleo.
Thank you. All the data presented tonight are measuring literacy in one way or another. Before we take a look at the data sets, I would like to review the complexity of learning how to read. So you've heard me say this before, reading is a complex activity. When presented with a passage of text, how do you get meaning from that? You need to learn how to convert words into speech, and you need to understand that speech. So you have to learn how to decode. And I want you to take a second just to read that to yourselves. Next slide. You must also have background knowledge. Again, I'm going to ask you to read that to yourselves, please. Next slide. You have also seen this before. This is the reading rope. It's a body of research. Decoding, as you can see, which is what you were doing with the first slide, falls under word recognition. Background knowledge falls under language comprehension, excuse me. You need to have both to make sense of what you're reading. I'm sharing this again just to kind of guide us a little bit on how difficult it is to teach reading and even more difficult to learn how to read because it is not a natural activity of the human brain. On the next slide, as we look at data, I want you to keep this visual in mind. What we are presenting to you tonight is the tip of the iceberg. What you don't see are hundreds and hundreds of hours of collaboration, of planning, of discussing instruction, academic conferences that take place, data reflections that we ask our teachers and our administrators to do, PDSA cycles, acceleration blocks, small group rotations, you name it. There's so much that the data that you're looking at tonight doesn't show. So as we together look at data sets, again, I want you to keep in mind that we're only looking at the tip of the iceberg, and there's a whole story behind all the data sets. On the next slide, the district reading assessments, you already know it's administered 3 times per year in grades kinder through 3rd grade. Each grade level has different assessments and different benchmarks. That's important to keep in mind because what you're going to look at are cohorts. So same groups of students taking different assessments each year. The DRA monitors the word recognition, which was the bottom portion of the reading rope. So here we have cohorts, and it's a little difficult to see the color coding there, but you have it in front of you. I do want to share with you that there is a correction to 1st grade. The previous documents that you had stated that 1st grade was at 66%. It's actually at 70%. If you also look at the packet that was given to you, note that the correction comes from Lake Canyon 1st grade. The documents that you have in your binder state Lake Canyon 1st grade's at 52. It should actually read 73, which is why this change then was made to the district-wide data. So if you take a look at kinder, remember we're looking at cohorts. The LCAP goal is, of course, to grow 10% each year from spring to spring. If you take a look at last year's kinder, 73% of them met all the benchmarks for kinder. That same group now in 1st, this last testing period of the winter 2024, they are now at 70%, or 70% of them, excuse me, met all the benchmarks. If you take a look again, that same cohort, last year, 73. If you add 10%, we're expecting 1st grade to reach 83%. The rest of the data reads the same way. On the next slide, this is the same data, different visual. The yellow is where we are now. the green is where we want to be. Something that might catch your attention is second grade. I want you to know that we have analyzed the data by individual student, by grade level, by school. We've talked to our admin team. For this particular grade now, it appears that most of the children struggled with rate, meaning the number of words they can read correctly in 1 minute. Now, it is still not necessarily early in the year, but the year hasn't come to an end. So we are hoping to see growth in that area, but know that the data that, or the assessments that we give provide us with a glimpse of how the children are moving as a group. And as I've talked to you before, we analyze, again, every data set, and clearly we could identify an area of need for the children in second grade right now appears to be with rate. Now, if we were to ask our administrative team, so what are we doing about that? They can share with you how each PLC is working towards developing that fluency, which will increase the rate. Next slide. Now we're moving to MAP. Board, is it okay with you if I go over all the data and then we'll come to questions, or would you prefer that we stop and keep going? Perfect. Okay. So measures of academic progress, MAP, is administered 3 times per year for students in grades 1st and 2nd. It's only administered in the fall and the winter twice for students in grades 3-8 because they take SBAC in the spring. The MAP generally monitors the language comprehension, the top portion of the reading rope. MAP targets, the LCAP states that we would like to see an increase by 5% from winter to winter. Again, this is with cohorts. Note that the 5% target is a minimum, not our maximum. If you think of general goals, what is the general umbrella guiding this target? We would like to see students reach the 60th percentile by the end of 8th grade. Why that 60th percentile? Because children that typically score at or above the 60th percentile appear to do well on both local and state assessments. Next slide. So did we meet our target? You know, LCAP again talks about that 5% growth from winter to winter. Here you have a visual of 2nd through 8th grade. Clearly you can see 2nd, 3rd, 6th, and 7th for the area of math met or exceeded that 5% target. Next slide. This information is related to reading. Again, you can clearly see 2nd and 3rd grade already met or exceeded that 5% target winter to winter. Some of the grade levels you can see are pretty close, but again, where we had to set a target of 5%, doesn't mean that other grade levels didn't grow. Most grade levels did. We just wanted to see a 5%. Next slide. As a reference point, and we probably won't come back to this after this point, but in case you were wondering, pre and post pandemic. So how were we doing before the pandemic and how are we doing now? Here you have grades 2nd, 5th, and 8th, fall 2019 compared to winter 2024. The reason that these grade levels were selected is because standards come in grade level spans, and the first bundle of standards is K2. So we wanted to see at the end of that 2nd grade. The next band is 3rd through 5th, and the last one is 6th through 8th. So we're looking at the end of each grade level span. Here you can see in math, we are showing growth. We're making progress. ELA, we're catching up. Again, you hear me say this every single time I present data to you. We work with children. Children are unpredictable. In front of us, one day we think they have it, they're with us, they understand, they can give it to you verbally in written form. We assess the following day and they don't have it because we work with children. So this is just a glimpse on how we are doing, which is why we say these are just monitoring methods, because it doesn't really show truly what children have learned and what they know, because they are children. So again, pre and post pandemic, making growth in math, catching up in ELA. On the next slide, acceleration blocks. Acceleration blocks are voluntary. They happen after school. They typically focus on a skill. There are 8 sessions per cycle. The target was 5% growth on MAP within 1 semester. Important for you to keep that in mind, because we have the 5% for the year. But for acceleration blocks, we just wanted to see if we're really targeting a specific skill with a specific group of children, could they reach that 5% growth in a trimester versus a whole year? Most children made growth, but they may not have met that 5% target. So I want you to keep that in mind when you look at the next slide. In the area of ELA, we had 126 students participate. 55% of them met that 5% target. Here you have the percentages for each school of the children who met that 5%. Again, what this doesn't show is, well, how many children grew? Because we again set that bar at 5%. If you take a look at the next slide, area of math, same information, 145 students participated, 54% of them met the target. Here you have it by school. What I would like to do right now regarding acceleration blocks is I'm going to turn it over to our administrative team. Would you please highlight trends that you saw, what you've noticed, observations you made regarding the acceleration blocks? And maybe we'll start with Laura. I think you're representing both schools, so you tell us which school you are highlighting first.
First, I'll highlight Lake Canyon. And so we have had 3 fourth grade classes do at least 2 rounds this year. Our SDC 4th through 6th grade has participated, and 1 first grade class has also done first and second trimester. Most met the 5% growth goal in at least 1 test area. Many met both. But basically 100% of them met their personal growth goals for Lake Canyon. And what we did notice, and I'll go ahead and say this now for Marengo Ranch too, all students had a significant boost in confidence and SEL considerations.
Thank you. Valley?
Thank you. First, I would just like to say that it was a wonderful opportunity for our students to be able to stay after, and we had great attendance rates, probably close to 90% attendance rate for our students who stayed. We had a number of grade levels who offered acceleration blocks, with the majority of our acceleration blocks so far being offered in 3rd and 5th grades. We've seen great growth in some of the students' isolated skills. So sometimes we look at, like, say, MAP scores, and we say, well, how come, this or that number? Oftentimes what we do is we break down students' areas of needs into specifics, and something more specific, for example, in our lower grades, sight words, for example, would be something that you're working on very specifically. Upper grades, students who struggle with math facts, multiplication facts, even as old as 5th grade. So when time is spent on learning those and progressing with that, they're not necessarily the same types of questions that are asked on the MAP test. You don't get a lot of, what's 8 times 9. It's built into the types of questions that are offered. But with students who have deficits in specific skills like that, it's a great opportunity for us to hone in on those specific deficits and work on them. So it's not always a one-to-one correlation between the skill that they're working on in the acceleration block, but the hope and the goal is that as they increase those specific individual skills that they'll translate later on in other areas of assessments and things like that. But great opportunity for our students. They love to stay. If they didn't like it, they didn't have to, right? I mean, they didn't have to stay, and we had wonderful attendance and teachers willing to do it. So so far it's been a really great opportunity for Valley Oaks. Thank you.
Thank you. Elaine, 2 schools.
All right, so for River, we have had many acceleration blocks, many weeks, a lot of students. And I think it was during second trimester is when we actually had an acceleration block for every grade level, which was pretty awesome. And then at McCaffrey, we've had a couple different acceleration blocks. Sometimes it's for academics and sometimes it was for like sense of belonging. They needed a little bit more motivation to come to school. They need a little bit more SEL. And so a lot of our exploratory teachers would also do acceleration blocks. So like women in coding, and they learned about coding and women in the workforce and things like that. So that's what we have at River and McCaffrey.
Thank you. Greer?
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Mhm.
Okay. Okay. At Greer, most of the focus for our acceleration blocks were skill-based, primary DRA skills. So David talked a little bit about that, looking at what students didn't have at the time, but were ready to learn, and spending more time with them after school. I think we had a great attendance rate, which was really positive for us. The other group of students that we had in intermediate, they focused on math. Again, it was skill-based, like David said. Not necessarily a domain, but a skill within a domain that students were struggling with. And I will say that the data that came out of intermediate, though I know it looks like 57% met their 5% growth target, I think every one of the students that were in extended day met their their growth goal set by MAPS. So that was really, really exciting for the teachers. And I know we have more staff that are looking forward to doing it, participating next year. We have a lot of interns that weren't able to participate this year, but want to stay with their children after school and give them, time in terms of equity that they need to catch up.
Thank you. And Laura, are you with us? Or Laura? Laura, are you?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
What about Fairsight, the little ones? Did we do with acceleration blocks?
I would like to highlight one session. A preschool teacher held an acceleration block, and her focus was letter identification and name writing. And the students had good attendance. They were consistent with their attending all of the sessions. And by the end, they were able to identify the letters in their own name as well as the vowels in Spanish, because this was our dual language immersion preschool class. And then I followed up and looked at their trimester report cards and to see how did that carry over. And 3 of the 4 did meet the benchmarks of the letter sounds. So that was a good indication that the extra support they received during the acceleration block transferred over to consistent learning and then being able to show what they learned on their trimester benchmarks.
Thank you, Laura.
Mm.
So all that to say that the school day is long, and we had teachers that stayed even, longer to provide services, support to children, and children came. And again, if you keep that iceberg picture in mind, it's just the tip of the iceberg. There's so much that the data doesn't show, so much that teachers do, so much that parents do and children do that the data doesn't reflect. So with that, we'll have the next last slide. Better questions lead to better system outcomes. So we would appreciate any questions you might have. Questions is what drives what we do. You know, we try to figure out what is the question that we're trying to answer, and we search for that answer the best way we can. So with that, do you have any thoughts or any questions?
I just had a comment that I think it's really helpful to keep that like holistic view because that really was helpful for me to kind of go through the different, all the interventions that are happening behind the scenes. So like if you think of a story, the map is one chapter, but there's all of these other things to really make that whole story. So I really appreciate the overall look. So thank you. And thank you to everyone working really hard on this.
Thank you.
And it was nice to hear about the acceleration blocks and kind of what, I think that was a good point that you guys pointed out is, for teachers in a classroom to focus on maybe like the math facts, for instance, like they probably don't have time to focus on just that for a small group, but to be able to do it after school and get those kids caught up, that's a skill that they're going to need, forever. So that was nice to hear. And hopefully we can continue with the acceleration blocks. And thank you to all the staff that volunteers for that and makes it happen.
Thank you.
Thank you, Cleo. Great job. A lot of hard work. Our teachers are doing a great job, our classified staff, administrators, support staff. It takes everybody. Parents too. Parents are doing a really good job, much better this year getting students to school. Attendance is going up as well. And so we're excited to hopefully at the April board meeting, we will have the Cal Schools survey, Healthy Kids School survey data ready for you at that time so we can share how people are feeling to both students, parents, staff about social emotional learning, how they feel if their school is safe, those types of things, caring adult relationships. So we're excited to see that data here the next month.
Or is that you,
Yeah.
or is that?
Yes, no, this is going to be Kuljit. Thank you, Kuljit.
Great, thank you. So this evening, I'm excited to share a little bit about this grant that we have received. It is officially called the Evidence-Based Practices and Community Defined Evidence Practice Grant Award. Say that, it's kind of a tongue twister. But before I actually dive into the specifics of this grant, I thought it would be useful to give everybody some context to where this money is coming from. Okay. All right, so the governor has a master plan for kids' mental health. This is a historic 5-year, $4.7 billion initiative to reimagine and transform the way California supports children, youth, and families. This initiative is reimagining a more integrated and youth-centered, prevention-oriented system. By promoting mental and emotional behavioral health and well-being, it supports prevention and early intervention while addressing emerging and existing needs. It looks at increasing access to mental health, substance use services and supports while addressing barriers to well-being. At the core of this plan is the CYBHI initiative. That's the Child Youth Behavioral Health Initiative. And this is designed to meet young people and families where they are to create a system that can help them when and where in the way that they need it the most. Okay, next slide. The CYBHI serves as the core of the plan, and this falls under the Department of Healthcare Services umbrella. It is a collaborative effort and focuses on these 4 strategic areas: developing the workforce capacity, creating a larger, more representative workforce supporting emotional, mental health, and behavioral health of California's young people. It looks at the infrastructure of supporting these systems and to develop and transform to be able to support. Looks at pathways or creating pathways of coverage, and then also providing opportunities for more public awareness. So if we look at the infrastructure component of this master plan, this domain really does look to strengthen the school and behavioral component as a partnership and is intended to support student well-being by ensuring that there's no wrong door for children, youth, and families. Under this partnership, there are many mini grants that are awarded to build this capacity. And so some of these have been listed here, and the ones in bold are the ones that we are actually currently working with and or have done in the past. So the first one right there is the new statewide fee schedule for school-linked behavioral health services reimbursement for Medi-Cal and commercial health plans. So what this essentially is will be our ability for our counselors and our social workers to be able to bill private insurances for services that they provide at school. Currently, we do bill Medi-Cal for students that are on an IEP for services that we provide. This allows us to bill commercial health plans as well. So again, building the capacity to be able to have students have access to mental health supports at school and school districts to get reimbursed for it as well. So that's we're currently working through that infrastructure to have that in place. Do you want to go on to the next slide? We participated in the Cal Hope Student Services Program for the last 2 years at Greer. And this program worked with the Greer staff on developing and understanding the social emotional competencies. We worked with Sacramento County Office of Education to provide training, mentoring, and coaching for Greer staff so that they had the tools to be to better serve the needs of their students. And then the last bolded one is the providing training on trauma-informed care to educators, school personnel, and child care providers. So that is our new grant. Okay. So that is the evidence-based practices, community-defined evidence-based practice grant. It is around trauma. And so we will be awarded $748,000 over a 2-year grant period. And the goals of this grant are to embed trauma-informed practices and approaches across the district and with all staff that interact with students. And so this would encompass teachers, counselors, social workers, IAs, office staff, our kitchen staff, our transportation staff. It is on the premise that we build our in-house capacity to do this. And so when we applied for this grant, there were 2 options. We could either apply for a training option or we could apply for a integrated option. The integrated option really looked around building our own in-house ability to provide this ongoing training after the grant period sunsetted. Okay. So we will be working to build our in-house capacity, refining and developing and strengthening our MTSS intervention systems so that students that do need a higher level of care can be provided with community resources, and looking at early intervention and early identification and intervention services for students that need it. So some of the strategies that we're going to be putting into place to address those goals, as I mentioned, we are building our own infrastructure. So we landed on wellness coaches as our staffing support, and they will be trained through a trainer of trainers model from Susan Jones, who has 20+ years of experience working in schools as a behavior analyst and now a trauma expert. We will be coordinating and, as I mentioned, developing and strengthening our MTSS systems. We will be providing training to our staff on identifying trauma, recognizing impact, and then mitigating and providing tools for support. As a part of this grant, there is this family outreach and community training options. So the intent would be that these coaches that we train are able to provide family and parents trainings around these specific issues as well. One of the tools or strategies is developing calming corners. These are, again, embedded into classrooms to provide opportunities for students that may need to take some, need some additional space in terms of self-regulation. And there would be an equity evaluation requirement as a part of the grant. In terms of how will we know that we are making progress? There will be, the metrics that we will be looking at are data around our absenteeism rate, our suspensions expulsion rates, use of the calming corners, use of some restorative practices that would be implemented, and then surveys for job satisfaction and or staff wellness. I did provide for you a visual of year 1 and year 2 in your board packets, and this outlines kind of our plan moving forward, hiring our coaches, getting our trainer on board, getting those MOUs into place, doing some pre-assessments using surveys to get a gauge of where our staff and our students are right now, and then doing a post-survey at the end of the 2-year level, and then 2-year mark. And also embedded throughout the 2 years are ongoing coaching and mentoring and professional development for those wellness coaches. It's an extensive 2-year commitment.
Thank you, Kolji. Any questions on this grant?
And this grant, we applied for it last
year.
May.
Mhm.
Initially, we were supposed to have been notified before July that we had received it, and we didn't actually get notified until December. So we've been playing catch up on the timeline on implementation.
So for the 2-year plan, is that starting like this next school year? Or is it
Yes.
from like now?
Well, initially, when we first were notified that we had been awarded this grant and we started with the onboarding, we were told this is year 1. So all the school districts that were part of the grant went into panic mode. And this was February we started. They have now since said you can extend your work for another year. So we are planning for the fall next school year being year 1 and the following year being year 2. So
We are starting the planning now, and we have posted internally for wellness coaches,
right, stipends, yeah.
some stipends.
And getting our trainers, like the specific trainer that we have to work with that was written into the grant, getting the MOU and her training schedule. So all of those things are kind of being worked on the back end.
And our implementation plan is due next Friday, I believe.
On the 27th.
The 27th. So it's kind of outlining how we plan on spending the $750,000. And so that needs to be approved as well.
Right.
So we'll get that out next week, and then, just start planning.
Are the training materials for training the trainers, is that public, or is it accessible, or if someone wanted to see that, would they be able to, or?
It's, I'm sure it could be. I don't have access to it yet. And we can definitely ask the presenter to give us copies ahead of time.
Okay, maybe we can work with you if we wanted a copy.
Mhm. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We have LCAP goal number 2.
All right. So we have tonight to present to the board the information from our community bond survey. And we have, although I don't see, Ms. Bach, have you seen Richard? Okay, I know oh, well, maybe we are here. Well, there's Lori and Richard. All right. Outside, awesome. I thought I was going to have to do it without you, and boy, that might have been messy, you guys. Oh, thank you. All right, as we transition here, as you know, community survey went out, And we have the results, a condensed version of the results here for you tonight. We have Richard Bernard and we have Lori Ranieri and PowerPoint up there and FM3 Research conducted this survey for us and has a great presentation. A condensed version of what the board has seen in the 221s. So.
Right. So we conducted the survey between January 9th and the 21st of this year, so fairly fresh data. And as you know, this experience has been, I've been doing this for 21 years, and it's been an exceptional and an unusual experience for me. I'm going to sort of tell you things you already know, but you have 3 different school districts that have worked together and with a lot of collegiality and respect. Usually it's dog eat dog. And so I just want to tell you how impressed I've been. But it's important in the context of interpreting the survey because we have simulated a potential ballot. So the high school, if the high school chooses to place something on the ballot, they will be first, just because of the rules of the game, and you would be second. And so I'm going to be presenting the results for the information for your district, but know that when I show the vote, the initial vote and the subsequent vote, that the person who was interviewed has heard the high school district as well prior to yours. So it's not unique to just your district, but it's actually simulating real life if they choose to place it on. I don't get that opportunity very often. And it's a lot of valuable information because having multiple bonds at the same time could end up hurting either one or both of the measures. So in a sense, your data has factored that in already. And they may or may not choose to go on the ballot. I won't get ahead of the board, nor will I get ahead of your board. All right. So with that in mind, so we conducted the survey in early January. It was a dual mode survey, which means a random portion of the respondents took the survey online and a random portion on the phone. We interviewed 404 voters in your district who are likely to vote in a November 2024 election based on their past voter history or if they've recently registered to vote. For questions asked of everyone, including the vote questions, but I'll remind you so you don't have to remember, the margin of error is plus or minus 4.9%. In some cases, we had a lot of questions and we took a random half of the sample and asked them some and another random half the other, and there the margin of error is larger. We contacted your voters by telephone, email, and text. And we, of course, offered the survey in both English and Spanish. And if you're very quick on math and notice something doesn't quite equal 100%, I blame that entirely on rounding. So let's start. Early on in the survey, I wanted to ask a conceptual question. Do they even think you need additional money? We're about to ask them, and perhaps you will as well in real life, be asking them to tax themselves to provide a bond. And if they don't think you have a need for additional funds, it will be more of a Herculean task. So we asked them that question and we gave them the option of great need, some need, a little need, or no real need. And some folks offered that they didn't know enough to offer an opinion. And you have on that question approximately 66% who said, so 2/3 that said you have at least some need for additional funds. reminding you that if you move forward at some point later on to seek voter approval on a bond, it would require 55% plus one. So having a number at 2/3 for a sense of need is a good place to start. I, of course, always like the greater need to have greater intensity. So then they're already there. But the fact that you can probably get there in terms of a greater some need means you'll probably need some outreach, some education to tell them your story. You have great schools. They're well run. And one of the problems with that is voters don't get you need money. You know, that's the problem with well-run schools. So you have to take some responsibility for that. But to compensate that, you can tell them your story. So this is the ballot question we asked them. If they were on phone, we read it to them. If they were online, they read it themselves. And before I get to the results, if you look at it, you may just say, Richard, you will not be getting an award for Shakespearean prose. There's a lot of legal requirements. There's certain words we have to include. We have to also include what kind of tax it is, what the rate is, the $30 per 100 thousandths of assessed value, that it's a $27 million bond, and that it would generate approximately annually $1.9 million, and some other things. And so what we do is you'll have ultimately, again, if you choose to move forward, a fairly extensive project list that will be accompanied by the ordinance. Legally, in a ballot question, you're only allowed 75 words. So you'll never include everything that you would like to say to them. So we try to, in the survey, identify things that are high priority to your residents, to your voters, and then try to help you cobble together a question that reflects their priorities. And in some cases, and frankly, in yours as well, there's a nice overlap with your voter priorities and your priorities, which is always a good marriage. So we read this to them, or they read it, and then we said, if there were an election today, would you vote yes in favor or no to oppose? If they said they would vote yes in favor, we asked them, is that definitely or probably yes? Because we want to know the intensity of support, the folks who say definitely yes. If they said no, we asked them, is that definitely or probably? Because we want to know the intensity of the opposition, the percent who say definitely no. If they were undecided, we kind of pushed them a little. We said, well, would you lean yes or would you lean no? If they said they'd lean yes, we put them in the yes camp, no in the no camp. And in this case, with this particular measure, 7% said I'm still undecided. I still got to think about it. So they're the pure undecided. So on the initial vote, for a 55 plus one measure, it was 62 yes, 31 no, 7% undecided, just hearing ballot title and summary. But I want to look a little closer into the data. The definitely yes at 39% is not a bad place to be. I usually like to see it in the 40s, but it's rarely there. So the high 30s, and by that I mean a good place to be. I've seen a lot of school measures looking like this, or even a little less, that have been successful at the end of the day. I also look to the definitely no, and I look for about a floor of 20%, and you're there. You're not in the 30s, you're not in the 40s in terms of opposition. So there is room. There's a lot of soft voters who are open to hearing your story. And hopefully, if it's your choice to move forward, hopefully they may get there. And we're going to, in the rest of the survey, simulate some public outreach to see if that makes a difference or not, because that would be our recommended next step if you choose to move forward, is to go out and tell your story a little bit. So we gave them a list of potential features of the bond, some infrastructure improvements, maintenance, as well as aspirational outcomes. If you do X, Y will happen. And I'll give you an illustrative example in a minute. And we said, regardless of whether you support the measure or not, how important would it be to include this in the measure? And we gave them the option of extremely important, which is the dark blue, somewhat important, which, very, very important, which is the mid-color blue, and that dullest of blues is somewhat important. The orange is not too important, and that sliver of gray is the people who said they didn't know. And I've aggregated the extremely and very important on the right-hand side and ranked it as such. For your particular district, and this includes items that we also tested related to the high school bond. So if you see some of these things and you say, well, that's not really us, it includes some high school stuff and some elementary stuff. And what's interesting about your particular voters, and it's not true about some of the other district voters, is they're focused on aspirational outcomes, a little bit more than the actual bricks and mortar projects. So for example, let's go down to the fourth item, which is retaining and attracting quality teachers. Some of you might say, Richard, a bond can't pay for teachers. Why is it here? If you have, and you should know this because you have good school or really good schools. If you have good schools, the best and brightest will want to come to teach here. So if your facilities, your infrastructure are top grade, they're going to do their best work. That outcome, because of your infrastructure improvements, will make a difference. And that's something I think we can probably include to improve your ballot question. And this is sort of helpful. So you do have some on the first page, continuing to provide safe drinking water. I don't think anyone doubts you provide it now, but I'll just use the words Flint, Michigan, and Jackson, Mississippi. And you can only imagine that people want to make sure that the kids in these schools continue to get safe drinking water if the pipes have to be changed at some point, because they eventually always do, that you're going to be on top of it, as well as repairing leaky roofs. We've had a significant amount of rain in California. If you don't have a leaky roof now, I suspect at some point you will have a leaky roof during the life of the bond. So there's some elements on this page, and then on the next page, and these numbers score quite high. We tested, I'm showing you 18 items. 9 of them are in the 80s, 12 are in the 70s in terms of extremely or very important. And remember, our goal is 55 plus 1. And even with the margin of error, it's way above that. And there's pretty good intensities, that dark blue across the board. And now as we go down this list, you're seeing some of the elements of an infrastructure, upgrading fire safety, electrical wiring, repairing deteriorating classrooms, schools and classrooms, that kind of thing that score well. And then I want to move over to the messaging. And here you will know, and I'm sure people will remind you on it over and over, that you cannot advocate on school dime. You can't do, you can't use a school phone to say, please vote yes. You can't do any of that, but you can educate and you can tell your story. What you do on your own time, you can do on your own time. So we provided them with 10 statements, randomized again. Everyone heard 7. Some of these are related to the high school. Some of them are related to your particular school. And after each one, we asked them, after each one, tell me if it would make you more inclined to vote yes on the measure. If they said it would, we asked them, is that much more inclined, which is the dark blue, or somewhat more inclined, which is the bright blue? And I've aggregated by the much more inclined, that intensity, that dark blue. The words in the parentheses are just the themes of the messages, because I'm certain that you don't want me to read 10 messages to you. So though maybe if it wasn't a board meeting, you might, but I'm not going to take up other people's time for that. But what we learn here is there's several messages that people really resonate with in your community. The number one is the career message. Some of that will be related to the high school, but you're pretty advanced a school district. And even at this point, you're prepping them for high school and ultimately to move on post high school. The statement about school shootings, unless one lives under a rock, every week or so, we're hearing about school shootings. So people want to make sure that certainly kids are safe. and then the repairing old schools. And every school, doesn't matter how new they are, ultimately needs some upgrades, like someone's house. You know, there's always something to be done. So we gave them a series of statements. Many of them scored quite high. And then we re-asked that ballot question that you saw earlier in the presentation. And it was intended to simulate an outreach. So on the initial vote, which you saw just ballot title and summary, it was 62-31 yes, no, again for a 55+1 measure. After telling what the money could be used for, some aspirational outcomes, and your story, re-asking the ballot question, support goes up 4 points. So within the margin of error, which is plus or minus 4.9. But what I'm excited about is that the definitely yes went up 6 points beyond margin of error. And you'll notice that the definitely no is still pretty flat. Now, we haven't said anything super negative about it. But if I use that margin of error test of plus or minus 4.9 on that total yes of 66%, let's use simple math and say 5. On the high end, the measure is at 71%, on the low end at 61%. Now, maybe some of those undecideds may not go in the direction of the measure, but you have a little bit of wiggle room to get there. So in conclusion, this measure appears to be viable for a November 2024 election. The numbers are fairly sort of consistent in terms of above the 55 threshold. Voters place the greatest priority and high quality education, safe and clean classrooms, safe drinking water, and retaining and attracting quality teachers. Those, again, most of them are aspirational outcomes. You need to do these other things in order to ensure that, and that would be part of your bond list. We think based on the survey that probably the ballot question can be strengthened a little bit, which might capture a few more points in favor of it, if that's of your interest. Messages focused on career paths, preventing school shootings, and repairing old schools are the most convincing in your district. And the results suggest that a ballot initiative could be successful, but it has to be accompanied by public outreach. If you just put it on and do nothing, there's less certainty about the likelihood of winning. There's no guarantee. The survey tries to provide a roadmap to reduce risk and perhaps increase likelihood of success. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
I don't remember if you covered this or not, or if you know the answer, but it kind of just popped in my head. So you polled 404. Do we know how many people voted in our school district? Like this election, is there a way to find out?
Only as a way to find out, I actually I have not said that. And so that's a fair question. I could tell you that we anticipate, first of all, I'll start by saying we anticipate about a little bit more or a little less than 17,000 voters may vote in the November 2024 election, assuming a high turnout. Sorry?
It'll be a big turnout.
Right. Yeah, probably most people will be coming out to vote against something or someone. Doesn't matter who you are. You're just anti something. And even though California doesn't necessarily play a big part in, there's no surprise who will come out of the presidential election in California. There's certainly uncertainty in terms of the country. People will want to state their opinions. So we anticipate that. In your question about, I don't know if I have it here, but if I do, yeah, so I have the number of folks who voted in the general 2020. Is that helpful for you? It was about 12,260, give or take.
I just had a comment. So you talked about the messaging and you also at the beginning talked about sort of the collegiality in the community. And I think a lot of that comes from a lot of the integrity in the community. So my hope is that whatever messaging that we have surrounding this before, during, and after, that there's a great deal of integrity in that messaging and in the sourcing of information and things like that. So I think ultimately, based on these numbers, it does look like ultimate survey will be at the ballot box when that happens. But I just wanted to reinforce that integrity of the messaging. And then I know there's accountability piece that was touched upon, and I don't know who's in the best position to maybe, if you could remind what that is, if it were to go forward and if it were to pass.
Yeah, well, I could share the 2016 bond, that I was over here a little bit more in that, during that time. And so there's a bond oversight committee, and there's annual audit, just like, the general fund audit. There's a bond audit as well. There's facility plans. We visit school sites. I think we met with our oversight committee at least quarterly, if not 4 times a year. There's lots of transparency. You can even still look on our website, it was Measure K in 2016, but we still have Measure K connection on our website that has all of our expenditure reports, audits. A lot of the projects are still on there, project maps, the listing. There's a lot that goes into it. It's a huge undertaking to go out for a bond, just the marketing, and the work that you do at the district level, just even if you get the funds, all the work that goes into the projects and the planning and the auditing. Anytime you have more money, it's a lot of work on staff spending the bills, the invoices, the accounting of it all. But there's a lot of transparency and there's a lot of oversight on how you spend the money, definitely.
Thank you. And I think especially now with the economic reticence we have out there, I think that will be really helpful.
Mhm. And I'm hoping if the board chooses to go forward with this, there's not a decision tonight. I'm hoping that the way that we have spent the most recent bond, Measure K, I think we have a good track record there. There's been a lot of positive feedback that the community can see. A lot of people tell us they see that our schools are in the best shape they've ever been in, both inside and out. And so I think we, did a good job with that. And we also did a really good job going after state funds as well, getting reimbursed. And we brought in over $10 million on reimbursement funds. So I think we've been fiscally responsible with these facility funds, and I think the community can see what we've done. So that would be a big part of our messaging and our marketing, getting that out there. Our architects right now, 19.6, as you know, they've been working on our facility master planning. We're almost done there. We had our last meeting with our administrators today, and so they've been mapping out a 10-year plan, which it's good to have these plans, even if you're not going out for a bond, because you need to know how to use your routine maintenance facility funds as well to keep up with your schools. But they will have a detailed report for you in May. And so that would be our roadmap for planning and what projects would go first if we were to get a bond.
Can I
Absolutely. Yes, please do.
ask you a question? So you said your schools are in great shape. Is it fair to say there's more to do?
Oh,
I
absolutely.
just want to make sure, because if I thought that they were in great shape, I'm not sure I would vote for the measure.
Mhm.
So you must have some needs, right? You must.
We do.
Yeah.
We do. Probably, boy, I bet you it's going to be close to $100 million of needs that will be identified when we see that facility master plan. Of course,
Some of these are basic repairs, right?
absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is this something that we're going to discuss tonight more? Or we'll have it on the,
Well, at this point, what I would kind of like from the board is direction on a feeling of, do you want us to move forward with this? Just, is this something that you feel based on the data right now and the research that we have? If you do, then I would like to bring to the board at the April meeting a contract for a marketing firm. We have been talking about this again, we're collaborating with our COE and the high school district as well. We do have a quote right now that, we've done some research and we have found a firm that if we want to move forward with this, I would like to bring it to the board in April. And if the board were to approve that in April, it still doesn't mean that you're going out for the bond. It means that we would work with the firm and we would start our marketing. And then the resolution would come to the board in the June meeting. So you still have now until June to make that decision if you really want to go forward with putting this on the ballot. I'd want to make sure the board understood the cost associated with that as well. It's over 40,000 just to get it on the ballot with Sacramento County. And so you're going to have marketing costs, you'll have the ballot cost, you'll have flyers and things like that. So I want to make sure the board understood that, but it looks pretty positive at this point, but there's there's some work we would have to do to really get the word out there as well.
Right. And I kind of refer to those firms as public outreach. They do two things, right? They tell your story in the way that reflects the priorities of the board and the community, and also they listen. They listen to the community. So this isn't like a sell job. This is, a lot of it is going the other way. You reached out to the community with this survey to listen to what your voters wanted, what their priorities were. And some folks will say, well, I wasn't one of those 404. I have an opinion too. This is your opportunity to listen more to them. So that is something that typically happens because if you do nothing, if you don't tell your story, there are going to be a lot of folks who will say, we have great schools. Why do we need this? And you do have great schools, but there are still things to be done.
Lori, Lori Ranieri, our financial expert here.
Well, I want to second many of the things that Richard said. First of all, the collaboration has been tremendous, and all three districts have gotten a lot of professional help at very low cost because of the economy of scale, which has been great, and everybody's just been so professional. I also want to second what Richard was saying about the next consultant that we want to introduce, which they don't have any relationship with our team, and you're a member of our Joint Powers Authority. Your interests are the paramount interests, but what we're talking about with this expertise is in community engagement. As we go down this process, we're doing more and more engagement. So if you decide to consider putting a bond measure on the ballot at your June meeting, that comes to you with all of that information and input. As the superintendent said, we're going to have many more needs than we can afford to fund from a local bond. So there's a strategy of how do we fund what we fund locally, what we might get from the state, what has to be priority, what is feasible to do. It's not just that we can't do everything. We can't even do the things that we want to do and might be able to do all at once, right? We have all these factors. So what you want to be prepared for is, as you consider this, that when it comes time to consider a vote, that what you're voting on is a plan. It's not just a measure, it's a plan. We would like to ask for voter approval so that we could go forward and do this set of projects over this time frame, and this is what the bond measure looks like to help implement that. So that's where it's really about community engagement. And you might remember, I remember because the food was really good. We had some really nice community meetings when we were considering our last measure, and we had dozens and dozens of people participate. Lois, you might know the numbers. It seemed like hundreds of people came.
Yeah, I don't have the numbers on the top of my head, but we had a lot.
Yeah.
We served food, we served dinner, visited all the school sites. Yeah.
Yeah, we had people engaged in different languages. I remember that my PowerPoints had to be converted, which was kind of fun for me. But the reason I'm bringing that up is since COVID, we have found that kind of engagement that was so successful as a community event before is not really as desired anymore. And we're having to find new ways to engage. So last time, and you were involved, we had a wonderful effort to involve people that was very much run by the people here in the community who do community engagement on a lot of fronts. But now I think what we're talking about with another consultant, and you may want to be slapping your head, another consultant, but to me, it's more like a coach to understand how to do this in this era. And this era is not just the post-COVID era, it's also a very political year and things are perceived very politically. And what we want to talk about is children and schools and the Galt community. And so it's good to have a coach who is very experienced about how to do that. And, I wouldn't have even suggested this to the Galt Elementary District if we didn't have this opportunity through the collaboration to have this kind of professional service at a very discounted cost, because not only are we getting the economy of scale of the 3 districts, the people seem to be so excited by this idea, like Richard was, of the 3 districts working together. They really want to work with us, which is great. So we're not only getting the economy of scale of the 3 districts, but the person discounted it even more than I would have thought for the 3. So my recommendation is that we might as well take this, this expertise. And finally, even if you decide not to put a bond measure on the ballot, it's not that you're never going to do it, right? At some point, it's needed now. So that need isn't going to go away. So having this community engagement sets the stage for all those future conversations. So I apologize if I've been a bit redundant, but I just want to kind of give you that picture that it's all a process. And at each point, we've given you the opportunity to put up a stop sign. You're not putting up a green light to have the bond measure. You're just putting up you're just not putting up a stop sign. So we continue with this research and engagement process.
Thank you. So at the next
So we would
month
bring,
meeting, you would bring the
yes,
cost,
bring the contract for the consultant.
and then it depends on how the high school district and our COE, what they
Yes.
decide, because if they both decide not to, which more than likely, it seems like it's a positive
Mhm.
feedback, then it would just be our cost.
Right.
We're the only ones that decided.
Right. And we could ask to bring that to, and maybe we'll know, well, we wouldn't know yet. Our board meeting is normally, our COA was last night, we're tonight, and then high school's tomorrow. We're kind of on that cycle of Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So you wouldn't necessarily know, you might know what our COA did. You won't know what the high school probably, because they're usually the night after us. But we could have a breakdown, say, the other 2 school districts don't go forward with this and we choose to, what that fee would be just for us versus what it would be if all 3 of us share the cost. Because right now we're looking at the 3 sharing the cost.
Yeah, if maybe we could have both.
Mhm. Yeah, we could do that. We could have both because that could happen. One district might choose to, the other 2 might not, 2 might, 1 might not. I mean, who knows?
I think every district probably feels, yes, we need the money. We know we do. I just, it scares me a little bit to invest
Mhm.
and put out that much money,
Mhm.
not knowing. And especially, I think it's going to be, a big turnout.
Mhm.
Is there, and if this isn't possible, you can tell me. No. Is it possible to survey the parents?
Okay, that I knew.
'Cause I feel like the 404, while that's a great
Mhm.
sampling of the community, like I think it's gonna be parents
Mhm.
that vote for it, if anyone's going to.
Yeah. Lori or Richard, you want to speak to how you chose the 404 and?
Well, Richard is going to address that
Okay.
because there's data that he has about parents. But I wanted to say that part of the community engagement process that is guided by the other consultant who we're going to be meeting with next week, we're going to hear more about what they do. But having worked with not only this consultant, but many consultants who do this type of work, the community engagement includes making sure the parent's voice is heard. That's a big part of what they do. And they use the survey as a guide to what community engagement they want to do. So sometimes they actually will do surveys, but they'll be very different. They're not like this kind of survey. It's more of a community engagement conversation that they're having. So there is a form of that, but it's not the same with this, the kind of professionals randomized sample statistically valid survey that Richard does, but we will have opportunities during community engagement to make sure we hear the parent voice and frankly, everyone's voice.
So for the entire survey we conducted, one of the questions we asked was, do you have children under the age of 19 living at home? Now, of course, some of the parents homeschool, some of them have kids going to private schools and the like, but 37% of the respondents said that they did have children 19 years of age or under 19 years of age living at home. And so what I would say is you have to remember that you're relying on likely November voters, of which only a portion of them will be parents. And shockingly, at sometimes some of the parents don't vote for it. I'll tell you, there's sometimes gender splits. You know, moms tend to be a little bit more focused on that, and dads not so much. So the moms have to talk to the dads to make sure they vote. But the challenge are the folks who don't have a connection to your schools, right? Now, they may have had kids that were here and they graduated, they moved on, and so they've lost focus about what's going on here. But there's a large percentage of your community that all they know is they drive by your schools. And if they look fine on the outside, I just did some focus groups the other night, and I had a parents group and a non-parents group, and I asked the non-parents group, well, you know, how do you think the conditions of the schools are? And they say, oh, they look great. When I drive by, they keep them up nicely. The lawns are manicured. They look fantastic. There's no problem here. Then I get the parents in the room and they tell me there was a flood in the shop class, and they were worried that their son would be electrocuted and that there was a sewer break in one of the other schools and they had to close it down for a day. None of these stories are ever told to non-parents. So parents are super important. There's no question. And they're sort of like, in a way, they're your army of folks who are going to go out and, you know, try to get their friends and neighbors to vote for this. But there are a whole bunch of folks that you have to consider that have no connection at all. So remember, there are a variety of diverse communities in your community that you have to care about. Sure.
Yeah, that's a good point about driving by. It makes me think, just last week, we had a pond at Fairsight. You didn't see it necessarily driving by, but we had a water leak, a very large one underneath the ground. Pipes, of course, are very old at Fairsight, and it was thousands of dollars that we had to do the work over the weekend because the water had to be off. And so, I mean, those are examples of things that you don't see driving by, but do we need to replace some, you know, pipes at Fairsight and Valley Oaks? Absolutely, we do. Do we have some sewer lines that give us some problems at Valley? We do. And so those are the things that you might not see driving by and that we just talked about today when we were looking at the Valley Oaks facilities map. So those are the kinds of things that we have to get out there and make sure that the community understands that we still need to do those things.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Move on to school calendars.
All right. Sorry. Thank you very much, Richard and Lori. Thank you. Okay, we will start with Fairsight Elementary. I know Laura Marquez is online with us.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Well, I would like to highlight something that is not on my April calendar. And the reason why it's not on the calendar is because it came together very recently. So our small but very powerful parent advisory committee is organizing an art night. We have that scheduled for April 18th at 5:30. So we will have hands-on art activities for the children to do, student art on display, snacks and treats for sale, and maybe even some raffle prizes of some art kits. So that's a new event for Fairsight. So we're really looking forward to providing families another opportunity to come out in the evening and do some art.
Thank you, Ms. Marquez. We have Greer Elementary, Ms. Simonich.
So hard. In April, April, we are finishing character counts lessons. That's been going really well. Kids have enjoyed themselves with the Galt PD officers presenting. And we have our talent show practice and dress rehearsal. Exciting. Looking forward to the end of the year festive activities.
Lake Canyon is Papineau.
At Lake Canyon in April, we have our Celebration of Learning open house on April 10th. We've got 2 6th grade field trips that I want to go to both of. They're going to the ports and to Canoe Mobile, and 1st grade is going to Fog Willow. And then we continue to have boys basketball, and girls basketball will start at the end of the month.
Thank you. McCaffrey Middle School, Ms. Troll.
In April, we have a lot of the 6th graders coming as incoming 7th graders. They get to do their shadow days, which is exciting. So we have that going on. And then we also have a incoming Zoom for parents, just a question answer, give them a little, just a little insight about their 7th grader next year.
Great. Marengo Ranch, Ms. Papineau.
At Marengo in April, we have character counts continuing. On the 12th, we have Dress Like Your Parent Day. 6th grade's going to the Preserve for Canoe Mobile. We have our PTKC family dance, and 5th grade is going to UOP.
Great, thank you. River Oaks, Ms. Troll.
We also have 6th graders going on their canoe field trip to the Preserve. We also have 4th grade going to Sutter's Fort. We have a literacy night that you're welcome to come out. And then we are going to celebrate testing time with a Thinking Caps Day celebration, and then the Friday Sing Shine Bright, so we can get them excited for testing.
Thank you. Valley Oaks, Mr. Nelson.
So in continuing our tradition of having a family event each month, we actually have 2 in April. We have a family literacy night on Tuesday, April 9th. And then on Friday, the 19th, we have a family dance that's going to be held right after school. So we're looking forward to both of those events. We normally have great participation from the families at Valley Oaks.
Thank you very much.
So we'll move on to agenda item 232.478. And it's the consent calendar.
All right, a few things I wanted to highlight in the consent calendar for this month. I wanted to start with human resources. We do have a retirement. Tammy Treneman, who's currently a teacher at Lake Canyon. She's retiring after 24 years of service. So congratulations, Tammy. Of course, she'll finish out the year with us, and then she'll be off to hopefully some fun, right? Retirement. And then also on our consent calendar, for the first time in about 4 or 5 years, we have 2 job shares. We have a job share that will be in grade 2 at Lake Canyon next year. And then we have a job share at grade 3 that will be at Greer next year. And donations, we have 1 donation for River Oaks Elementary. Green Acres Nursery and Supply donated cactus, succulents, and soil for the Galt Expanded Learning Opportunities Program, their garden project valued at $71. And I also just wanted to make sure that the board saw in the consent calendar, the Catapult quote in the contract. We've talked about Catapult, the emergency management system. We did contract. We went ahead and went with that, where the year 1 startup fee is about $9,000, and that will come with some training and a little bit more year 1 for the startup. And then after that, an annual fee year 2 will be about $6,500. And so we're getting that set up. Training will take place in August. And so it's a emergency management system that we feel we need to continue to improve safety. And those are the highlights for the consent calendar this month.
Can I get a motion to approve item 232.478?
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Thank you. I have a motion from Annette Kunze to approve item number 232.478, seconded by Casey Raboy. Tracy Skinner,
Aye.
Catherine Harper.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion carries 4-0.
Item 232.480. For consideration of approval of second interim budget report for fiscal year 23-24.
Good evening, board. So it's that time of the year where I present our second interim report. This is from data. Go to the next slide, sorry. Okay, so this is data from July 1st and updated data from July 1st up to January 31st. And normally we present this in March, and in June, you'll see me coming back, providing our adopted budget for the next fiscal year. So some updates for second interim. Our COLA and our PERS remain the same for this fiscal year. The LCFF revenue is based on the funded ADA, which is at 3,223. Something that I would like to note that our average daily attendance is funded based on P2, which is our reporting period of attendance for students. That is normally done once a year in April. We currently are using P2 numbers from last year, and we'll be updating you guys what's going on in April and what the final numbers are. So currently, the projections we used was from using P2 from last year. Enrollment increased from first interim to second interim by about 44 students. So using that P2 number from last year is gonna gave us the projection of what's coming up in our multi-year. Budget development period, we'll be able to update you what the new P2 number and that reflection with that increase of students, what that really looks like. Our UPP, unduplicated pupil percentage, increased to 61.24, so it's about a 0.2 increase from first interim. The remaining ESSER funds are expiring this year. We have ESSER 1 and ESSER 2 that we're completely expending by the end of actually June. The Arts and Music Funds Proposition 28 will have a decrease in next year's budget. They just notified us in the updated budget. And salary increases of all groups are included in our multi-year. The committed funds that we have in our multi-year will be completely reduced at the end of this fiscal year. So now we have planned out what we're expending out for the next 2 years. The multi-year projection also includes an additional reduction of $600,000 projected for the 25 and 26 school year to maintain that 9%. So here I'd like to note some changes from first interim to second interim. When we brought first interim, we were conservative and went down to that 2% projection. And unfortunately, during our January's budget, it actually came down, as I mentioned last month, to a 0.76. And as well as the 25-26 school year, it went down to 2.73. Again, one of the things we'd like to share that COLA is simply to account for the increase of inflated costs. It does not provide the increases of real spending to our everyday pockets. So the district enrollment and funded ADA. So I wanted to share our projections, what we used for 23-24, and then the next 2 years. Our projections are at 3,427 based on the information on January 31st. And we have seen the increase. That ADA has maintained the same because I'm waiting for April's numbers. So as soon as we get the April numbers, I will be able to give you a projection of the increase of funding because of the students. Pension rates. From first and second interim, there was a slight increase of 0.2 for our PERS projection. Keep in mind, STIRS and PERS are only one portion of our statutory benefits. We still have our OASDI, we have our Medicare, SUI, workers' comp we're obligated as a district to budget in our multi-year projection and including our retirement CalSTRS and CalPERS. So what does our revenue look like combined? So for our restricted and unrestricted total combined, including our one-time learning loss funds and ESSER funds, we have a total about $54 million. Of that, LCFF makes up majority of $39 million. The federal and state revenues that you'll see that decrease in their next 2 years because we start expending all that one-time money. Our expenditures. So our total expenditures is about 60 million. Again, you'll notice there's a difference between our revenue and our expenditure. Why are expenditures $10 million more? Because we have that carryover fund balance that we're spending out in our multi-year. It's within the fund balance for our restricted funds. About 77% of our district budget is salaries and benefits. And the unrestricted reserve level. So I wanted to note the differences going out in our multi-year projection. When we built originally first interim, you notice at 17, 14, and 12. But we have finalized our settlement negotiations, and you'll start noticing that we dipped into our reserves. Another thing that I'd like you to know, we had to include a reduction of additional 600,000, as we mentioned earlier. That way our reserves maintain that 9% in the last fiscal year 25-26. And keep in mind also, we don't have any more committed funds. We have fully expended all those funds in our multi-year projections. This is basically showing this is what we have now. So what does it look like? We shared an update last month about January's budget. We also shared news information that we received from school services and other sources about what's coming up. We knew that they're in a deficit. The legislation analyst office, the LAO, what we refer to, keeps continuously provide us that they're even forecasting a larger deficit for May. They do have some proposals for the governor to help offset that deficit. Some of their options that their governor has available is to utilize Proposition 98, their reserves. That way that our schools are able to retain some of the cash resources. They're also proposing to remove COLA completely. And that would be a big impact to our budget if he does decide to do that. There are also another option to reject the governor's new proposal. So he has many proposals coming up, and they're saying, hey, you're in a negative, like you need to cut down, here's some options. There's also the other option of adjusting existing programs such as the ELP or title funds that we already are receiving, and then or reallocate some of the unallocated educational funds to mitigate the deficit. So the governor has many options, and all which would affect the district, and we're just waiting for May's actual proposal, what he's going to bring up in May to give us a better projection for the multi-year, and which would we will present in June. So overall, as a district, our synopsis is the district has met all the financial obligations, and we're certifying as a positive. The district continues to monitor ADA and enrollment, and negotiations are settled. CSE and unrepresented is pending board approval for tonight. And we continue to prioritize school safety and secure learning environments for our students and our staff. You have any questions for me?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I get a motion to approve item 232.4? 80.
I'll make the motion to approve 232.480.
I'll second.
Thank you. I have a motion from Catherine Harper to approve item number 232480, seconded by Tracy Skinner. Casey Raboy,
Aye.
Annette Kunze.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion carries 4-0.
Alondra.
Yes.
Agenda item.
Still here.
1, board consideration of approval of the Galt Unified Joint Union. Sorry, I'm getting tired here. 23-24 transportation plan.
Yes, so this would be our second year around bringing the transportation plan. In 2022, the governor proposed to provide an additional 60% of our home to school transportation expenditures, as long as we provide a plan by April 1st. So this transportation plan, able to pull it up or? Sorry, do we pull up the transportation plan? Oh, no, I mean, I'm just checking. Okay, perfect. So the transportation plan, what we've updated, due to, by collaborating with, Galt High School, because we share transportation. We also, collaborated with us, we contacted Sacramento Metropolitan Air Quality, Galt City Transit to make sure any information that we could update in our plan. We had this in the DAC and DLAC meetings. And what we've updated in section 8 is you note the expanded learning opportunities program. We do provide transportation, and then some of the acceleration block programs, we've been providing transportation. So we just want to make sure we included that in the plan. Those were the changes from last year's. And then we also noted on additional components on section D, number 3, we added the dates of and who we contacted. So we tried to collaborate our community members, parents, groups, and other sources around our community to make sure our plan, we contact all our stakeholders. Is there any questions on the plan? No?
No, thank you. There's no questions, then can I get a motion to approve item 232.4?
I'll make the motion to approve.
I'll second.
Thank you. I have a motion from Annette Kunze to approve item number 232481, seconded by Casey Raboy. Tracy Skinner. Catherine Harper.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion passes 4-0.
Item 232.482. For consideration of resolution number 15, in the presidential general election, the Galt Joint Union Elementary School District will request to consolidate the regular scheduled presidential election on November 5th, 2024, and nomination of candidates for the governing body.
Okay, yes, so this is a resolution that the board needs to adopt in order to participate in the November 5th election period. We will have 2 seats open for trustees in our district, and so this resolution will go to the counties moving forward to get that in place for November 5th.
Get a motion to approve. I'll make the motion. Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. I have a motion from Tracy Skinner to approve item number 232482, seconded by Casey Raboy. Catherine Harper.
Aye.
Annette Kunze.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion carries 4-0.
Item 232.483, for consideration of approval of the tentative agreement between the California School Employees Association and its Galt chapter number 362 CSEA and the Galt Joint Union Elementary School District regarding articles. I'll let you read all of them.
Okay, sure. I can summarize. So I wanted to start by thanking our CSEA bargaining team for collaboratively working with our management at the bargaining table to get this TA and to get it to pass by membership. It takes a lot of work. And so this TA has been successfully ratified by classified membership. It also has been approved by our county office fiscal team that the district can't afford this. What we are proposing is a 4% increase to the salary schedule retroactive to July 1 for classified staff. and also a one-time bonus, 1%. It's also retroactive to July 1. And then there's some slight increases to longevity for the first couple of years there at $100 increase. And then for the last over 20 years or over 25 years, an increase of $200. There's some increases to associate degrees, bachelor degrees, and master's degree if a classified employee holds those degrees. And then there's also going through negotiations with our classified staff, we've looked at some parity studies for positions. What was brought up was the position for the health secretary, personnel technician, and the warehouse worker delivery driver. We are recommending some range changes for those three positions. Also, fringe benefits towards the health cap did go up $150 for classified staff. And there's contract language attached with this package for you, or this agenda item is the TA. You have all of the salary schedules for all the classified positions. You also have the public disclosure and the contract language. We negotiated changes to leaves, layoff and reemployment, and professional growth program. And so you have the line item changes in your packet along with the current contract language. Some slight changes. Most of the changes were in leaves, and those are really related to current law on when employees would be eligible for leave and how the district would work or would accommodate that. The fiscal impact, so the ongoing increase is almost $700,000 for this package, and the one-time increase is $127,000 or almost $128,000. And so we are recommending that these salary changes or increases in contract language changes be approved by the board. Thank you.
Can I get a motion?
I'll make the motion to approve 232.483.
I'll second.
Thank you. I have a motion from Catherine Harper to approve item number 232-483, seconded by Annette Kunze. Tracy Skinner.
Aye.
Casey Raboy.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion carries 4-0.
Item 232.48. Consideration of approval of the agreement between the Galt Joint Union Elementary School District and the unrepresented employees regarding compensation.
All right, thank you. So the district employs 40 unrepresented staff members. It's from confidential staff to counselors to administrators. So with that, we are recommending a salary increase that's very comparable to what other employee groups have received in the district. It would be a 3.5% ongoing salary increase, a one-time bonus, and then a 1% increase to the levels of longevity that these employee groups get or these positions get. And then likewise to the increase to the degrees, associate, bachelor, master's, and doctorate increase between 250 to 500 matches what certificated receives as well for degrees that you hold. And we weren't consistent there. There were some confidential staff that weren't getting the same level. And so we just brought it up to an equal level. Again, based on a salary parity study of comparable districts, we are recommending some range changes for two positions. We have classified confidential administrative assistants. We have 3 employees in our district that hold that position. And they are currently at range K. We are recommending 1 range increase to move to L. And then the executive assistant, the superintendent, looking at parity study in that as well. We are recommending that that position be moved from the classified confidential salary schedule where it's currently at and be moved to the supervisory salary schedule. Those are provided for you there in your packet. We're recommending range K. That's where we have 3 or 4 other positions in the district as well at range K. All of the salary schedules are updated and provided for you. The ongoing increase, the cost to the district for this package is $265,000. And the one-time payment is $53,000 for the unrepresented employee group.
Can I get a motion? Item 232.484.
I'll make the motion to approve.
I'll second.
Thank you. I have a motion from Annette Kunze to approve item number 232.484, seconded by Tracy Skinner. Casey Raboy?
Aye.
Catherine Harper?
Aye.
Thank you. The motion carries 4-0.
Item 232.485, correction of approval 2324 Title I notification authorization of school-wide program waiver for Fairsight.
Yes, so we are requesting that the board approve the waiver for Fairsight to operate as a school-wide program in using their Title I funds. So Title I funds can be used by a school in two different ways, either school-wide programs or targeted assistant school programs. The school-wide program allows these supplemental funds to be used to improve academic achievement throughout the school so that all students can demonstrate proficiency related to the standards. In comparison, a targeted assistance program targets specific students. And we are requesting the waiver because in order to be a school-wide program, you do have to have 40% of your families meeting that low income threshold. And right now we have less than 40%, but with a waiver, we can operate as a school-wide program.
Any questions? Can I get a motion to approve 232.485?
I'll make the motion to approve 232.485.
I'll second.
Thank you. I have a motion from Catherine Harper to approve item number 232.485, seconded by Casey Raboy. Tracy Skinner? Annette Kunze?
Aye.
Thank you. The motion carries 4-0.
Agenda item 232.486.
Okay, thank you. So we have some board policies and administrative regulations that we are bringing to the board tonight for a first reading and open for discussion. These items or these board policies were not part of the quarterly updates for CSBA, but what happened, we've had some recent events and some questions from parents, staff, related to visitors on campus, potential disruptions, political activities on what's allowed, what's not allowed, especially with the presidential election coming up. So we've been asked to review these policies, and we did find that either we did not have one, in one case that I'll explain, or they were pretty outdated, 2016, 2017. So that's why we're bringing these updates to you. So I'll summarize some of the changes. If we look at the first one, policy 1250 for visitors and outsiders, pretty minor. We would go with option 1. Any person who is not a student or staff member shall register immediately upon entering any school building or grounds when school is in session. And then if you look at the regulation for this, we are outlining the definition or who is an outsider, who would have to register in the office. All people would have to register in the office unless you are a student at the school and you're currently not on suspension, or if you are a board member or a district employee. So if you fall in those two groups, you're not required to register at the office, but any other visitors on campus would be required to register at the office. And what we require a name, we require the purpose for entering the school grounds, and we also require proof of identity. And then if we move to policy 1313 civility, this is a policy we currently do not have. It is an optional policy and it may be revised to reflect district practice. This policy came up when we were reviewing our policy on disruptions. And so the sixth paragraph here is also optional. If you look down, or the sixth paragraph, it's referenced. You'll see the, sorry, at the very bottom, the second to the last paragraph, it references the board policy on disruption. And so that's how this came about. Also, it's noted that CSBA, there's an optional paragraph that reflects traits included in the definition of civil behavior. This is just CSBA's definition of civil behavior. Again, this is up for board discussion, and it's not a mandated policy, so you can choose to not have it. You can choose to edit. There's just bringing this to light to the board. And then disruptions, 35152. There were some changes to this. The main changes, which we do have in place, but now it's in the language, which is good, that we have to have plans in place that should address appropriate visitors, registration, procedures, campus security, evacuation procedures, lockdown procedures, active shooter situation, communications with parents, guardian, law enforcement, and media. So we do have these systems in place, but prior to this update, it was not in the policy. We also, I believe there's one more change I wanted to highlight. Under disruptions, under the regulation, something that has been added. It is towards the bottom after number 3, that paragraph they have added, whenever an individual is causing or threatening to cause disruption at any district facility other than a school campus, the superintendent or designee may direct that individual leave the facility consistent with this regulation and the accompanying board policy. So that has been added. So again, this is a first reading. They would come back to the board for adoption next month. Did I miss one? Oh, I'm sorry. Political activity. Yes, thank you. So what has been updated there is related to the main one I wanted to highlight. I'm sorry. Let's see. All right. So we have been asked about attire that employees might wear on campus. So it has been updated that you cannot wear buttons, hats, or other articles of clothing that express political opinions on ballot measures or candidates during instructional time. And so this has come up. Employees have asked about it. And so policy does state this. It also states that no employee organization or its officers, agents, or representatives shall be prohibited from soliciting or receiving political funds or contributions to promote the passage or defeat of a ballot. And you cannot do this during working time. You also cannot do, there was one other, this one too. You shall not use district fund services, supplies, or equipment such as staff mailboxes or the district mail system to urge or support, defeat any ballot or support any candidates. And so they did add that even our unions or other employee groups cannot be campaigning literature or mass mailing with the intent to persuade. And so we can ask if this were to happen, if there was literature or campaigning going on during instructional time, we can say that that's not allowed.
I had a question and a comment. For the first one on the visitors and outsiders, how does that, it's sort of that quasi a staff that's on administrative leave, or how does that work for option 1?
Well, staff that are on administrative leave, there's different guidelines for that. And if there was a situation where we have a staff that's on administrative leave, what they are served or the letter they receive states that they're not allowed on campus unless it's previously arranged.
Okay, perfect.
If you're on leave.
Okay, excellent.
If you're on admin leave, administrative leave,
Right.
not of course, if you're on medical leave or something like that. But if you were there was a situation where you were asked not to be on campus, then that's all stated in a letter.
Okay, great. And then the other one, I really struggled with this one. And so I don't know what the best approach is, if I'm the only one that felt this way. I really had struggled with the civility one, and not because I don't think people should be civil as in polite and courteous, because I definitely do think we all should model civil behavior. And I think that's really up to the individual to do so. But some of these things in here, one, I mean, I don't know if you want me to go through all of the reasons I had concerns with this, or if we could just revisit it, or how, I don't know if it'd be helpful to say why I had concerns with it. But I just really felt like there was some elements in here that I don't think are prerequisites for civility. For example, acceptance. I don't think acceptance of all things is necessarily a requirement for civil. I would never ask someone to accept everything I said and believed in order for them to be considered civilly communicating, acting civil with me. Same with effective communication. Some people have challenges in communicating. And who is the final arbiter of this? Is there going to be who decides this? What are the consequences? Talks about education aspect. There's so many elements in here. I think it's dangerously close, brushing close to the First Amendment protections. So I just really had struggle with the way this, and I did see this was almost exact CSBA language, and I can see why the CSBA might want to promote that. But I just really struggled, and I would have real strong challenges supporting the language as it's written here for a multitude of reasons.
I just want to add that this reads differently to me than pretty much all the other policy that I have read in the past year and a half. And I have the same, that was my first question too, especially when you get to the last couple of paragraphs, is how do you enforce this? And it just, the tone of this is different, and I'm having trouble putting my finger on it right now, but it's a strange thing to me. I have some of the same concerns that Annette has.
Yeah, so there's a couple different options. Again, this is not a mandated policy. So the board can choose, and it's not adoption tonight. So the board can choose to either give direction now that, you'd rather not move forward with this, or maybe you want to make some edits to the language.
Sorry.
Oh, you're probably going to say the same thing I'm about to say.
Well, I don't know. Well, so we had just adopted last year meeting procedures, and pretty clear meeting procedures as to if someone is acting in XYZ manner, this is what the president can do, so controlling this space and making it be open at the same time orderly. So I almost feel like this is pretty unnecessary based on the fact that we already adopted something. Maybe you guys have another opinion. I'd be interested.
Well, also, I'm reading, this being district facilities.
Yeah, so beyond the
Beyond,
board, but
yes.
But I think we already have.
Specifically,
things, yeah.
kind of
that.
covers everything.
well, I think there's ways to change the wording. But
And I think most adults are going to be civil. I mean, I think it's,
for the ones who aren't.
well, the ones who aren't are not going to not be civil because of this.
I would think that it would fall more under disruption. So if they're not being civil, they would be disrupting. So I get what you're saying about why have policy just to have policy. We need multiple policies on.
I would hate for passionate or spirited debate to start to fall under disruption, because we're not going to be sitting in these seats forever. This will.
But I mean, I'm thinking beyond here, I don't see people getting into a debate at the school campuses. If they're visiting, they're there for, a parent event or a school function.
But
I think the debating would be more here, and we do have those.
we have guidelines for them. I'm thinking about when somebody comes into district office.
which.
Yes, that's what I'm thinking.
And they have rights to
Not,
be, as long as they're not being disruptive, they can be in. Yeah,
Mhm.
in the front,
Mhm.
as long as they want.
I would just like to see an element that staff is protected from harassment.
Well, there is
And I think that's the
harassment procedures
disruption, because I
already,
think
right?
civility, I mean, you.
Yeah.
It's kind of a hard.
And we have employee harassment training and all of that, right?
From
From
the
outside.
Or
public.
from the public.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's, I'm just thinking of
Yeah.
that.
But if
like,
they're not
people
threatening
need
or
to work in
obscene, then they
a
can,
workplace that.
yeah. But if they're not threatening or disruptive, they have First Amendment rights.
Mhm.
And we do not have the authority to do that. I think we put ourselves in a risky situation if we start rush too closely to that. But that's just my opinion. So.
I mean, I agree. I think the disruption policy kind of covers what we would need to maintain.
Would you, the disruption language, it gives us, if somebody is being disruptive, there's description of it being safe, harassing, things like that, then we do have the ability of removing somebody.
Sometimes people don't say anything though. It's just their presence
As long as
can
their
be
presence isn't-
intimidating.
But if their presence isn't being disruptive or rude, you can't tell them they. Can't be
Yes,
in a
this is
public
true.
meeting. As.
Well, that seems sticky to say your presence is, your
Yes.
very
No,
presence is disruptive, therefore, like you, that's an area, like, I don't want to go there, So. Yeah.
And I think the best thing we can do is model it, right? Everywhere we go, we're modeling it, parents are modeling it, teachers are modeling it. That's what's going to be the impactful. And you're always going to get the person who is not going to be, none of this may matter to them regardless, no matter how many models they see. But I think most adults are going to model civil behavior. And so do we really need a policy for that, for the one-offs, for the ones who are going to do what they're going to do anyways? So,
Which I think we're still covered under the policy.
I would agree.
Yeah, creating some extra, and you said it's not mandatory.
This one is not mandatory, no. It's a recommended.
So table it for right now? If we
Yeah,
wanted
so
to.
what we would do is we would bring it back. We would bring it, again, it's not an action item tonight, so we would bring it as an action item next month. And then at that point, the board can choose to pull it and vote on the other ones, approve the other ones, or you can give direction to make some changes to the language.
And then that brings us to public comments for topics not on the agenda. Do we have any other public comments for items not on the agenda?
There are no requests for public comment at this time.
Still have pending agenda items, the SRO report.
Yes.
And was there any other?
Mine's not an agenda item, but I just wanted to make everyone aware that right now there's a lot of education bills going through the committees. There was a committee hearing today. There was one on some special education, English learners, social sciences curriculum with regards to Native Americans and the referencing of them. So if you're interested, they record them and they're available the same day. There's a lot of discussions. And then if you have, feelings pro, against, for or against, definitely it's always easier, as I say, to get those out there before something is adopted. Or if you want it to be adopted, then to definitely let them know that you're supportive of those. So there was a hearing today, and then that was the assembly. And then the Senate, I believe, has a hearing on April 3rd, but they're, continual. So I would definitely encourage, it's neat to hear them talk about it too. So.
Thank you. Nothing else, then we will adjourn.
Thank you.
Thank you.